4.0. Fourth industrial revolution. This is the fourth major wave. We've seen three come before this and kind of have been transitioning between the third and the fourth. That was the digital revolution into this new information age that we are living now, which is also known as Industrial 4.0. The digital revolution brought us the days of the early days or late days, depending on how you look at it, of the internet. It brought technology into our lives in a way we never expected and we could never live without today. Now, Industrial 4.0, from the industrial enterprise side to the consumer side, have technology integrated in everything we do, everything. And we'll do so even further as we look towards the decade ahead, as this next wave of industry transforms our lives, as everyone has, but maybe potentially more than anyone has before this. And that includes the introduction of steam power, the introduction of mass manufacturing, the introduction of electricity, the introduction of television, of the internet, of all these great technologies. But Industrial 4.0 is something different. You can feel it, you can see it, and we all live it. And that's what we're here to talk about today in so much detail. And with that, before we go ahead and get started, a big thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. If you like what you hear today, click subscribe and do reach out as investors if you would like to be on a show like today to share your thoughts and insights around industries, technologies, and regions around the world, like our investors and panelists will be doing today. And entrepreneurs, if you'd like the chance to pitch us and our live audience as well, do reach out. We'd love to find the right set of investors to give you feedback on your product, service, and company, along with the right set of audience and topic as well, to get the best of the opportunity for you. So do reach out to the LA Token team and or myself, and we'd love to find the right fit for you. And speaking of LA Token, a big thank you to the team and to Emmanuel for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's dive in. I teased out a little bit of what Industrial 4.0 is and what it has meant to us and what it's starting to mean even more of as we start to see the digitization of our daily lives. Now, if you go back 5 years, this is called the digital transformation. You go back a little bit, about 2 or 3 years, it was DX, shortened for digital transformation. Now we are here talking about the digitization of everything we know, from our daily lives to the industries, to the way that we do business and the way that we live each and every way that we do. Now, with that, I would love to come to each of our guests for their quick introductions, and then we'll dive in further on these topics. Keith, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. Little intro, little background.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, I've been an investor in industrial space, clean tech, and including manufacturing, and then and over the last few years, Industry 4.0. But I've been doing it for 20 years now, initially with Mitsubishi Corporation, and then running BASF's North American venture activities, 10 years with Pangea Ventures. And this year, I've formed a new group doing a hybrid PE VC strategy focused a lot on manufacturing and supply chain opportunities.
And what is the name of that new entity as you just launched last week? And again, congratulations on that. But so the audience knows, what's the new name and the location they can find it?
Well, they're not going to see much. It's pretty stealth mode right now, but it's called Upper Stage Ventures.
Wonderful. And again, congratulations to you and your team on that that launch. Mr. Gary Fowler, the grand master of artificial intelligence, AI being the new electricity. We have fast forward from Industrial 2.0 to 4.0, looking at this new electricity. Give us a little intro, a little background on yourself.
Oh, Kyle, you are the grand poobah of the digital transformation.
I love it. I love it.
All-seeing eye. So my name's Gary Fowler. And I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done 16 companies. I write a lot. Now I'm on my 82nd article, I think. And this one's on SPACs, thanks to you, Kyle. And, you know, I've done 2 unicorns. I love artificial intelligence. I've done an IPO on Nasdaq. And really this whole, you know, if we look at in the industrial revolution where we're going, IoT, AI, big data, I mean, they're all playing an incredible part. And the interesting is they're transportable models. So the model that I use in manufacturing can be used in healthcare if I have the right kind of data set. So I just love it. I think that we're in the most incredible time we've ever experienced, not just because of the pandemic, but we've been forced to do things differently and connect here via mediums like Zoom. So it's great, and I look forward to this today. Thank you very much, Kyle.
Absolutely. And on that quick note on the introduction, I mean, you're absolutely right. We've been forced into these new opportunities around connection. But if we look back to the industry 3.0, again, that digital age, that digital revolution that we had, it brought us the internet. It brought us this new way to connect, a way that we cannot live without in most cases today more than ever. And that was this not just this introduction, but now this forced way of communication. And looking to industry 4.0, this may be our new, and again, as you mentioned, not just due to what's happened here in 2020, but also in general, this is a way we were moving towards being able to connect anywhere at any time with anybody, no matter location. And this is just the beginning. Next, holograms. Here we come. But we'll come back to that in just a moment. Thilo, welcome back to the show. Little intro, a little background.
Yes, very warm welcome here from Berlin, Germany, and representing Europe today, continental Europe at least, as our friends from the UK unfortunately will leave us soon. Yeah, I mean, my name is Thilo Bono. I'm running Europe's leading technology PR firm. We have a lot of clients in the industry 4.0 space, from IoT, robotics, cloud, big data, sensors. So yeah, the entire bunch. So it's super exciting. And I'm also with my family offices investing heavily in the space, be it blockchain, be it other areas. I'm with more than 15 venture capital funds globally all around the world, from Asia to LA. So it's very exciting. And so I hope I can give a bit of a European, but also global perspective on that.
Absolutely. And welcome back. Last but not least, Gianpaolo, welcome back to the show. A little intro, a little background.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good day, good evening. My name is Gianpaolo Parigi. I'm a venture capitalist, serial investor. I've been investing in industrial and manufacturing throughout my entire career. I've been investing in clean tech renewables, and I'm also the founder of a technology amalgamator that is going to be launched next month, which hybridize industrial and technology startups together. So very happy to be here today. So back to you, Kyle.
Wonderful, thank you. And to our audience, just want to touch on something real quick that all of our investors and panelists mentioned, as they have been investing in this industry or this area for more than a decade. And some of you may be thinking, well, wait a second, Industrial 3.0, that digital revolution, aren't we still living it? How is this Industry 4.0 new? And how has everyone been investing in this for so long? Well, just a quick thing to touch on. As defined by a number of sources, Industrial 4.0 includes so much of the convergence of everything we've seen over the last industrial revolution, the evolution of these technologies, the evolution of these products and services to get us to where we are today. And that includes mobile devices, that includes the Internet of Things, which is so big and encompassing in itself. That includes location detection technologies, human interfaces, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, identity, sensors, data. And if I wasn't clear, data, from predictive models to smart factories to augmented reality and virtual reality to wearables to so much more, including on-demand services, again, leveraging that data, looking at cyber physical systems, looking at cognitive computing when we get into, again, artificial intelligence and machine learning. We've talked about blockchain, we've talked about 5G and future connectivity, we've talked about robotics, manufacturing, I could go on. But the point is, all of our investors today, myself included, have been looking at these industries for decades because they have early teased out and now are coming to life. And as we look to this next revolution, as things begin to transform, 2020 was a foundational year. It was a setting year for the Industrial 4.0. As we look ahead to the next 10 years, will we see Industrial 5.0? Who knows? That's not the point. The next year, the next 10 years will be transformative for all of these technologies. Keith, let's start with you. What are you seeing as the current state of this convergence of the Industrial 4.0 revolution as we see it not just now, but looking ahead for the decade?
Yeah, I mean, the word that I would focus on for Industry 4.0 is synergy. What we are really realizing here is that these systems that have operated by and large separately, though they inform each other, they ran by and large separately for decades, or in some cases centuries. We are now seeing an ability via data to take meaningful measurements, meaningful information out of one system and improve another. And it's a feedback, it becomes a virtuous cycle. So each process here, the data from each step can inform and improve the other steps. And we get into kind of an exponential curve, a knee in the curve, if you will, which is why this is likened to an industrial revolution, because we are seeing a step change, an acceleration in new values being generated out of, in some cases, old systems that are made better by new systems. So one of the sort of key examples I would point to here is in the biotech industry, where you are often looking for huge improvements in cell productivity for expression of particular molecules. I'm talking here about industrial biotechnology, though this also applies to the manufacturing of pharmaceuticals and foodstuffs and that as well. But really on the industrial side, you are looking for huge improvements in yield. Data has allowed us to very quickly parse through millions, and in some cases billions, of variations on mutations within yeast. This or E. coli or whatever it is you're using for your expression organism. This allows this data that we bring in and analyze so quickly, and it's the analysis that is the key here, allows us to quickly improve, find new strains, improve the conditions, the temperature, the amount of time you take ramping it up, the rate at which the vat is stirred, etc., to greatly improve by orders of magnitude the expression and of the desired molecule, and cut down the expression of undesirable molecules, which may be toxic to the very organisms that are expressing what you want to express.
Well, that's exciting and opens up a whole new world as well around genetics and biotech in general, right? Being able to personalize things in ways that we have only dreamt of in some cases, but also just being able to do simple tailoring will change. And we're already starting to see the beginnings of that as well. And I want to come back to that in just a moment. Thilo, to you, current state, what are you seeing as you're also looking ahead again to the decade in front of us?
Yes, I mean, what I see on a positive side for all these startups ramping up in the space and coming up, that also, which is very important, I think, for their success, that the sales cycles shrinking, as now with the pandemic, which is also part of our topic today, more and more Mittelstand company, manufacturing companies, etc., looking for solutions. So it's actually a very positive time, I think, for Industry 4.0 startups, be it in the IoT space, database space, or sensors, or blockchain, etc. So I think here in Europe, I have conversations with many founders that tell me, usually with the corporate sales cycles that took 6 months, up to a year or longer, now deals are closed within, let's say, 6 weeks, right, and not 6 months. So that's first of all very positive. That's really they are run to digitize things, etc. And what I see is that in every vertical now, innovative ideas coming up, and it's really, especially here in Europe, all over. I talked some days ago with a company in Hamburg that builds like an infrastructure system for robots. So if you see, for example, the hardware that a company like Boston Dynamics, for example, produces, where the robots can go into your factory and measure temperature, for example, or go in spaces where it's not really safe for your employees, etc. So they're building new innovative software that they can control this and really manage it. Or, for example, in the middle of nowhere in Dornbirn in Austria, there's a company called Crate, which is a database company for IoT scale, right? So their purpose is to scale modern applications in a kind of a machine data world. So it's super exciting. They're working with ABB, with really big, great, amazing companies together. It's a startup, right? So and with their database, where you have really this kind of massive amount of data that you have to scale with to ensure product quality, things like that. That's really an amazing thing. And last example, maybe a company here around the corner from Berlin, which is, by the way, a female CEO and a female CTO, ZK Systems, a blockchain company. They're working already with SAP together, with Bosch, with many of these great industrial companies, and helping them to build like real-time transparency in their production facilities, and really to help them to get a comprehensive overview of their production process, and help them also with new utilization models like equipment as a service business models. So it's really amazing. So with the 3 examples in robotics, in IoT, with blockchain, I think that's still small startups, but you see they already working with big corporates together. So there's definitely high demand, and I'm very happy that especially here out of Germany, or the German-speaking countries, where we have a lot of great manufacturing companies and industrial companies, that they are partnering in such a productive and an efficient way with young startups together, and that there's a very fruitful collaboration. It's very amazing to see.
Yeah, I think you're calling it out right. And Keith and Giampaolo and I spoke about this last week as well, is that a convergence again of startups to corporates. The sales cycles are reducing, but the opportunities are expanding, which is exciting to see. And Giampaolo, to you, what are you seeing as the current state of Industrial 4.0 from your area, looking at this from a few decades, we'll just say as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, as Tylo, I'm looking at it from a very privileged observatory, being in the European Union myself, and which is an industrial powerhouse. But I think, Kyle, in your introduction, and also Gary, as mentioned, I mean, this is it's not an incremental innovation. This is a breakthrough in history, because the Industrial Revolution has heavily affected how society conducted not only trade and business, but also the personal lives of every society members. But the Industrial 4.0 is, I would say, I mean, to quote a phrase, it's not the only thing, it's everything. It's just, it's all encompassing, because, we are hybridizing the economy, creating this mega cyborg, gigantic entity where we will not be able anymore. We are not actually already able anymore to separate the technology from the, let's say, the most physical aspects of manufacturing. And frankly speaking, there is even no reason for anyone to be willing to separate those aspects. They are already coexisting, and they are blending and merging with one another to level that are, if we were not, with our feet down here, mind-boggling. And because, and it's accelerating period to live in as a human being, but it's also quite interesting and fascinating as an entrepreneur or as an investor, because the opportunities are manifold. And so, I'm excited, that every day we see that from one venture we could really spin off 4 or 5 different other ventures. From one vertical we can ramificate into different verticals. It's incredible. I mean, it's just I would say it's not a problem maybe of shortage of capital. At the end, it could be a shortage of human resources and intellectual capital, but not because we don't have it, just because we have not retooled the labor force to live and go along with the stream. And I think that offers to those investors that are interested in that part of the equation, again, enormous opportunities to invest, because there will be millions and millions of people that are being displaced from, let's say, traditional manufacturing, and even from, I would say, quote unquote, traditional technology jobs, to be retooled into the new format of the economy. And as I say, it's gonna be really like this cyborg mega entity that will consist of fantastic parts, sometimes cellular parts, because we are going towards a cellular society, and scattering production and in many different parts that were unthinkable of until even a couple of decades ago. And it's really fantastic. I think there's the possibilities are limitless, and it requires from the investor's point of view an attitude towards constant flux and constant change. I mean, the world has always been constantly changing, but we have been trying to box, certain aspects of the economic life into categories for having a better management and comprehension. Well, I think, we gotta get rid of those categories because, they don't make much sense anymore. And we have to learn to become completely fluid, which doesn't mean that we are not having direction or a bearing and compass. We will still know where the north is. But, again, we are living in a different state, I would say, and it is really fantastic. So, I would really, I wish I had a day of 48 hours to do all that I see that it's doable, but of course we can't. And my modest example that I'm bringing to the table is this tech amalgamator that I've created. Is a sort of accelerator, but for the 21st century, which deals with what are the issues that technology startups face. And one of the issues they face is the lack of proximity, sometimes in conjunction to the industrial side of the business of the equation, or to the multinational that can, promote and propel the growth of those startups. But again, the propulsion of those startups cannot be made like it used to be made back then, in the old days. Like I remember one beautiful model in the United States, 3M. 3M had a methodology by which when a certain division reached a certain minimum amount of dollars, it was spun off into an individual entity of its own. And that's been a beautiful model in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. Then we have other models, but again, this reality dictates that even those models have to be left aside, because we need to be prepared to. Every day we'll have a paradigm shift. Several times per day we have different paradigm shifts. So the reality is it really meaningful for us to keep codifying things like we did? I don't think so. I think as I say, we have to move as fast as technology dictates for us to move, which is a great effort on the human part, because obviously our mind alone is brilliant, but it cannot compare with the velocity of processing information that multi quantum computers have, or even serially connected computers have. And one thing I want to talk about the data that you mentioned, Kyle, several times today.
Sure.
Every time we turn around, we overall a company and we transform it to increase the margins and to reduce the cost. Every time we squeeze this lemon and produce juice, we also create a byproduct, which is data. Every single individual transformation that we do in every company, with the injection of technology that has been made to date in industrial and manufacturing, we obtain these byproducts that before it was not existing, or it was not really usable as it is today. So every time we alter, amend, correct a process, we obtain as a result, even if it's not the intended result, data as a byproduct, which are usable again and again and again, and for which there would be new jobs created, because obviously there would be computers at work, but there would be also humans having to interpret and metabolize this data at a higher level for everyone to benefit from this. So I think it's really a fantastic time to live in, and I feel very privileged to witness this.
Well, and if only we had 48 hours in the day. We could keep going on all those opportunities that you just mentioned as well. Which to your point, I mean, the human element still plays a very important role, but the models and the data behind them, it's amazing. And Gary, I'm coming to you on this. This is a perfect tee up. Thank you, Gianpaolo. What are you seeing as the current state looking ahead to the decade? I mean, you've got data upon data upon data upon data. You are the data master with artificial intelligence, but in general, what are you seeing in the bigger picture of things when it comes to the decade ahead of us?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm looking at, look at some of the trends that are taking place, things like autonomous robots. And we look at it and they're across multiple vertical markets, Kyle. So horizontal and vertical integration, department functions and capabilities are going to be a lot more cohesive across the organization. In fact, I told you the head of Internet of Things from Intel worldwide is going to be on my show tomorrow. So if anybody wants to tune in, Samir Sharma, the #1 guy, GM. And we've had a couple discussions about it. So this industrial, industry X or 4.0, it's, changing a little bit. What does it mean? It means we're going to have a lot more embedded computers. Cybersecurity, because everything's connected together, is going to be a big issue because we don't want the bad guys turning off or trying to ransom us. The cloud, because now it's not just one location. Look where we are today. I wrote an article called Nikola Tesla's Dream Comes True, the democratization of opportunities. We're going to be connected. One site will be more connected to another site. It's not going to be where we have a private system inside a particular place. It's going to be everything's going to be connected together. And it's going to be connected across sites and across potential multiple companies. Then additives, things like 3D, right? We don't talk about 3D printing, but look at it's going to transform everything. So from manufacturing parts, et cetera, on site. And then finally, augmented reality. Augmented reality to be able to, let's say there's a part's broken in a particular system, having the AR capabilities and somebody on site to be able to fix it without you got the expert in X place. So AR, VR, XR, and really insight into the entire supply chain, from the time it starts to the time it's delivered to the customer. That's where it needs to be. And it's proven during this pandemic. And we had some calls many months ago, if you remember, about that insight when the system was broken, why we need to have it connected better. And those are the kind of things that are critically important. So if we look at each one of them, simulation and modeling, right? So we don't have to go down through and reinvent the wheel. We do it through simulation and modeling. And that's it. And obviously AI crosses across everything. So if we look at it, I strongly urge every manufacturer out there, and I'm going to speak to a group on the 26th of top manufacturers from around the world, actually either the founders or CEOs of the companies. You better start investing in AI resources, because if you don't, you're going to die. My talk is called Do It or Die.
That's a great point. Keith has got a little smirk on his face, so I'm going to be coming to him next. But you're absolutely right. I mean, looking at the Internet of Things, 10 years ago, this was a similar message that we were promoting: is either get in or get out, or you're going to be left behind. Because if you're not looking forward towards this future of a data-driven future at that, you're going to miss out on whether it's your products and services that once were are no longer going to exist. Consumer behavior changes way too quickly, and the expectations we have in general of how we want to live our lives, how we expect our products, how we expect our services has dramatically changed. And it's because of the power of data and the power of choice that we have, and it's such a different way than we ever have as well, which is super exciting, but also very nerve-wracking. If you're on the enterprise, doesn't mean you can't survive.
We can forecast what's going to happen, right? We got big enough data sets, we can start to forecast what's going to happen and react more quickly. I mean, it's not like you got to tear a whole factory down and rebuild the factory. You just reconfigure it.
Right. Reconfigure it, do a little upgrades, make it happen. And Keith, I want to come to you on that note as you're smirking. Anything to add on Gary's note, but then also in terms of supply chains? I mean, where are you seeing the future of supply chains start to move as Industrial 4.0 really starts to blossom here in the coming year or two?
Sure. Okay. Well, but first to touch on both Gary and Giampaolo's comments, AI is the way that we can get to 48 hours in our day. As we become smarter or as the systems that we build become smarter and faster at crunching these vast amounts of data, they can essentially do a lot of the analysis and modeling, information processing that allow us to make decisions with less time built doing the analysis and coming up with the variations, because the AI can do that for us. We can still be in charge of investment decisions or business decisions, manufacturing process decisions if we want. The AI would be happy to take that on as well.
Yeah, exactly. If we want, that's the operative, right?
Yeah, but
I'm not sure we're needed.
Well, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. But we can create more time by using these tools. It's for me, it's a very exciting aspect. And to the earlier example I was giving here on biological manufacturing, how quickly you can get to 10 times the production. This is in essence making time, because you can now make in a month what it would have taken you to run a process for a year in order to do. I love that aspect of this. But speaking specifically to your second question here around supply chain and logistics, that actually has been a major emphasis of Industry 4.0. We've seen the integration of robotics, not just into things that have been using it for decades, like automobile assembly lines, etc., but really smart robotics systems that are built into picking of parts, binning, and sorting of things. You can see these now beautiful two-dimensional conveyor belts that will route individual things into different places, and not just in a linear process. That driven by visual sensors as well as weight sensors that verify where things are in a process, allows for parts and components and whole products to be binned, sourced, sent out automatically. Again, in essence, creating more time or less need for labor. Now that presents other interesting challenges that I might be beyond the scope of today's discussion. But as we create, in essence, more time, more availability, and less need for intensive labor, what happens after every industrial revolution? There has been a big adjustment, and that's an interesting discussion there. But for supply chain and logistics, the integration of robotics and sensors and all the data that comes off of that, allowing AI to make analysis, recommendations, and yes, even decisions, this is transforming supply chain. There's such an exciting opportunity for investment in this area right now.
Well, and speaking on that, I mean, going into the areas of opportunity, where people should be laying their bets over the next year and a half, because there is so much opportunity. There are so many gaps that still need to be filled and worked on as well. And while we don't have time to get into all of them, Thilo, to you, where should investors be placing their bets, and where should founders be paying attention to as we come to the lightning round here in just a moment?
Yeah, I think obviously I'm a bit biased with Europe, but I think definitely when it comes to Industry 4.0, I mean, I always feel when you look at the US, it's more like social networks and e-commerce and all this kind of stuff. I think industrial solutions, they are really amazingly born here in Europe, and I see so many great opportunities here that I definitely think also when you're an investor in the US or in Asia, look at Europe, because as you know, Germany, but also other countries here are born from an industrial route, and I think there are amazing companies here. So also watch out Europe. There are amazing opportunities, and specifically when it comes to industry, I think I see three main things. One, everything connected obviously to IoT in general. That's definitely something. AI. I mean, Gary is the expert here, but definitely I see some great solutions here also coming out of Europe. But also don't forget blockchain. I know it was in the last couple of years a bit, not so fancy because a lot of bad things also happened here. But especially in the industrial 4.0 area, there are a lot of great companies coming up, and a lot of solutions that really make sense. So I think there's a new wave of great companies coming out of it, and I think these are the three sectors that I personally really bullish on, and Europe in general, of course.
Absolutely, Gianpaolo. Areas of opportunity. Where should people be paying attention to?
Well, most definitely, I agree with what Tyler just said right now. I mean, I think Europe probably will get the lion's share of the interest over the next few years for various reasons, because of the solid and established manufacturing base. Because anyway, don't forget, Industry 4.0 as a component of it, that it's still industrial. You know, it could be tweaked, it could be, as Gary said, you know, refurbished or modified in portions without altering the overall plant or factory. So obviously countries that have like Germany, Italy, in Europe, or even I think Korea, China, the United States, in certain parts of the territory, huge manufacturing base, stand to get the advantage. You know, the world itself is going to change. I cannot predict what's going to happen in the next 20 or 30 years, but I can definitely say that in the first 20 years, countries that have already those existing assets will be the ones that are going to benefit the most, because obviously you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Overall, the economy, you have a fantastic and phenomenal pool of talent, asset base, capital available, and of course, in this part of the world, also the rule of law versus other large economies, but where, you know, the rule of law may not be exactly perceived as being the same as here by the investors. So I think that definitely there are geographies like Europe that will enormously benefit from this, also because the European Union government, unlike any other government in the world, has now put out a gigantic relief package in the trillions that will be completely and solely earmarked for technology-related investments in a few industrial sectors, being healthcare, again, digital transformation, again, clean tech and the environment, the green economy in a nutshell, and blockchain and artificial intelligence, the usual suspects. So there's been a clear demand of the constituencies in Europe that has been well received at the central government in Brussels to execute, to implement, design, implement, and execute a strategy of investment designed around what this market wants. And of course, this is a magnet for institutional investors and quasi-institutional investors from everywhere in the world. But again, there are also other parts of the world that are equally interesting, like North America and to a degree China. Again, with the caveat that I've mentioned before, you know, I think that's where we're going to see in the first 2-3 decades most of the activity. But I also think that in 3 decades down the road, prepare for some surprise, because there will be countries that are not even on the map today, what we define the frontier countries, that might become, you know, leaders in something just because of the wonders that technology can offer. So
absolutely,
don't rule out. And I also agree, and I close here, I agree with what Kit said, but it's for a topic for another discussion or panel, that the consequences of the displacement of millions and millions of people because of the rapid advancement of technology would pose a threat to our companies, and not only in terms of
Oh, Gianpaolo, we may have lost you there. So Gary, I want to come to you.
In terms of the
Gary, I want to come to you on.
Yeah, sure.
our market will diminish. So, we'll have to address that. Well, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Gianpaolo, we had a little bit of a delay there, but Gary, I want to come to you for closing thoughts as we've reached the top of the hour here. And where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation here on Partner Monday?
Yeah,
to you.
sure. Yeah, Gary Fowler on LinkedIn, Gary at GSDVS.com. We're curating AI companies from around the world to turn them into unicorns. We've done it a couple of times. And just closing thoughts. I mean, this is a exciting time, and manufacturing is just one of the many vertical markets that's having an incredible impact. And the technologies that are out there are just, at the same issues with cybersecurity, need to use the cloud, need to use artificial intelligence. Robots are hot. Autonomous and prediction and forecasting and actually doing are the future. So, I mean, it's an exciting time, but it's happening all at once. The convergence is happening at one time, which is unprecedented. This has not happened like this before. All things are coming together, and that's why it's a really exciting time. So anyhow, thanks. I appreciate it, Kyle.
It's absolutely super exciting. I mean, again, we've been working on some of these technologies for decades, and they're now finally here in this advancing form. And I say advancing because they're not done. They are not yet at their peak. They are still growing, as Gary has mentioned, even around artificial intelligence. There's still much to be had, which is very exciting as well. So definitely reach out to Gary to continue the conversation on AI. Gianpaolo, real quick, since we have you here, where can everyone find you online? To continue the conversation.
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on my personal webpage, which is gianpaoloparigi.com. You can find me via email. It's gianpaoloparigi1 as the digit 1 at gmail.com. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thilo, thank you. To you, quick closing thoughts. Where can everyone find you online to continue the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn is always a great idea, but I'm also on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. So feel free wherever you feel comfortable to connect and follow me. And but LinkedIn is obviously always the easiest.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, Keith, close us out. Where can anyone closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you online?
Sure. So you asked about exciting areas that we see for investment. I'm very excited about investing in food and agriculture. This is an area where supply chain logistics play a big role, where there's a lot of possibility for technology and innovation to move things quickly and realize a lot of value. It's also one of the few industrial areas where acquirers will pay a very high multiple of sales to acquire companies. So that also gets me excited about the space. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter at Keith A. Gillard. The name of my new company is Upper Stage Ventures. Upperstage.ventures is the URL.
So just maybe adding to this, when it comes to supply chain and logistic technology, there's a new accelerator dedicated to this topic here out of Berlin. So whoever is interested in this, I'm happy to help with an introduction.
What's the name of it? You can't just tease it out with name dropping. What's the name of it?
It's from one of the largest logistic company, Fiege Group. I don't know if you've ever heard about it, but it's one of the largest logistic companies in the world. And then they're building here an accelerator where they're helping startups with, of course, also their infrastructure and access to their network and investing also in them. So it's, specifically only for supply chain logistic tech companies.
Absolutely wonderful. Well, all, thank you so much for your thoughts and insights. And thank you, Thilo, for dropping that at the last minute. Appreciate it. To your audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out if you'd like to be on a show like today to share your thoughts and insights as technologies, industries, and regions around the world. Thank you, Keith. We'd love to have you join our investor panels along with experts as well from around the world. Entrepreneurs, thank you, Thilo. If you'd like to be on VCTV, thank you, Gary, and have a chance to pitch us as investors your product or service, do reach out to the LA Token team and or myself, and would like to find the right set of investors and topic for you. Big thank you to the LA Token team and Emmanuel for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and you can find me everywhere at Kyle Ellicott online, 24/7, 365. With that, have a great day. Have a happy Partner Monday, and we'll be back here soon.